No matter how much technology advances, one thing remains constant: the power of human skills. Think about it. Whether you and me are negotiating with our parents for extra screen time,
Look, I'd like to say I was studious, but I was a very mischievous person. The organized chaos. Everything works. It's chaotic, but everything works.
with one piece of advice, what would it be?
For what you did, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first edition of the Chaman Bhartiya School podcast. My name is Jyotsna. I study in grade 6 from Chaman Bhartiya School, and I am your host for today. All the world is buzzing. Trump's policies are keeping everyone on edge. The women's IPL has begun. And back home, CBS beat 29 schools at the Stonehill Makeathon to bag all the three top prizes. An amazing accomplishment. But beyond the headlines, one thing is becoming clearer than ever. Our world needs leaders. Leaders who are inclusive, creative, and fearless. And at CBS, we take that mission to our heart with our motto, Makers of Leaders. But what does leadership look like in today's world? Technology is evolving at a rapid pace, and AI is in every single conversation. Yet, no matter how much technology advances, one thing remains constant: the power of human skills. Think about it. Whether you and me are negotiating with our parents for extra screen time, or collaborating on a school project, or a world leader is making tough decisions. What truly sets individuals apart isn't just what they know, but how they think, connect, and adapt. India truly recognizes the importance of human skills. Our beloved Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has made it a priority by establishing a dedicated ministry of skill development and entrepreneurship. It's clear that upskilling isn't just an individual need, but a national priority. And that's exactly why I'm so excited about today's conversation. Our guest, Miss Natalie, Maxme's Director of Growth and Partnership for South India, has spent her career helping people and organizations unlock their full potential. With over 30 years of experience across Australia, India, and the Philippines, she has worked with some of the biggest companies building high performing teams. Today, she's leading the expansion of Maxme's programs in India, ensuring that students and professionals are equipped with human skills that truly set them apart. So let's dive in, exploring Miss Natalie's journey and learning from her invaluable insights. A very, very warm welcome to you, Miss Natalie.
Jyotsna, thank you so much. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. That's an amazing introduction. So thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you, Miss, for coming. As a child, speaking for all the other curious students at CBS, we would love to know what your childhood was like, Miss Natalie.
My childhood was an incredible one. I grew up in Canada. I'm originally from Canada. I come from Quebec. I'm a French Canadian, so my native tongue is French. My parents decided to educate my sister and I in English, which was quite novel at that time. And so we went to school not knowing the language. So we didn't know any English. And so we learned English in school and we spoke French at home. I had a great childhood. My parents are very, very strong leaders with some very strong core values. And so we grew up with great education and some great values at home. So I was very, very fortunate.
Wow, Miss, it sounds like you had an amazing childhood. If we were to time travel and go back in time and meet you, say, as a middle school student, what kind of student would you be? Would we find a very studious one or the mischievous type?
Well, that's a great question. It really is. Look, I'd like to say I was studious, but I was a very mischievous person. So I always like to push push the boundaries. I always like to question why, and I needed to understand why things had to be done a certain way. And so I like to challenge the status quo. Having said that, I was a relatively good student. I wouldn't say I was studious. My sister was much more studious than I was, but I still did well in school.
Wow, I could have never expected that from looking at you right now. Miss, could you please tell us more about Maxme, especially the Amica program, your human skills program for schools? How can it help students like me?
Well, Jyotsna, we believe that so Maxme is about human skills development, and it's all about self-awareness and understanding your core strengths. So our schools program are there to help maximize the students' non-technical skills, human skills, and it all starts with self-awareness. And so we do activity-based learning and bite-sized learning. And whilst technical skills and curriculums in school are very important, as you highlighted in your introduction, human skills are just as important. And so we emphasize, again, human skills through self-awareness, understanding your core strengths, so that you can then maximize the technical skills that you learn in school.
Wow, that's such a great perspective. Miss, with your over 30 years of your career, you've played so many roles. What inspired you to work in the field of human skills?
Well, my career, as you rightly said, has been over 30 years in various corporate organizations. And whilst I worked in many technology areas throughout my career, the fundamental requirement that I focused on as a leader was were my human skills. And that's what enabled me to succeed with my teams and to lead them successfully. And so it was a natural progression for me after so many years to join an organization like Maxme, which focuses on human skills. So part of it for me is about giving back as well. So I want to give back to students and organizations through Maxme's programs, which again are focused on human skills, which I'm very passionate about.
That's so inspiring. How can students like me build soft skills from a young age? And are there any fun ways to practice them?
Well, there are. I think so. That's a great question. So I think, human skills, we're all born with these skills. So these are skills that are innate in us. And so I think it's important as we're growing up that we remember our core values. And a lot of these core values will come from our families, from our schools, and so forth. It's important to not just look at these as words on a wall or on a page, right? So all of us are leaders in our own rights. And so it's how we act and it's how we behave on a daily basis. And so always remember your core values and what you're about and stick to those core values and make sure that you act on those, right? So if you're someone that is big on honesty or integrity and you see something that's not right, that's a core value of yours and you need to act on that. And that's really, really important. So always remember that.
That's such a powerful thought. Miss, with AI and technology changing so much around us, how do you think human skills will cope up in the future, especially when robots are starting to replace almost everything we do?
Jyotsna, that's another great question, and I get asked that a lot. So when you look at the progress of AI, as you rightly said, AI will replace a lot of menial tasks, and it will obviously evolve and mature. However, there will always be a need for human skills to look at what AI has developed and to also assess and provide the critical thinking. So AI is not going to communicate everything that someone wants to say and won't necessarily capture the essence of what you're trying to say. It may produce an email, for instance. However, you need to understand that email and interpret it based on your target audience. So if you're writing to a friend, you don't want that email to be too formal. Or if you're writing to someone very formal, you want to make sure that it captures the right essence for that target audience. So that's an example of how human skills will continue to be required. It'll be there to really enhance AI and will always be required.
That's such a unique way to look at it. As it seemed like you really loved your school as a kid, if you could design school education today, what human skills would you add as a part of curriculum?
Wow, that's a great question. So I think self-awareness, as I touched on, we start with self-awareness, understanding your core strengths. So that's something that I would definitely embed. I think that we learn to understand our technical skills. So we might be good at math, we might be good at chemistry, physics, English, and so forth. However, we get so far down the track that we forget what our human skills core strengths are. And I think that it's important to not lose track of that as we progress through our education. So my core strengths, for instance, encompasses things like humor, honesty, bravery. And when I look back over my career and my childhood, I see all of those aspects. However, if you had asked me throughout my education, what are my core strengths, I wouldn't have been able to articulate that as clearly as I can now. So I think human skills, things like communication, right? So how to communicate effectively, not just learning a language or writing exams, but communicating, visual communication in today's world is really important. So there's various aspects of human skills that I think can be embedded, and I'm seeing various institutions are trying to do that now, which is great to see.
Amazing. Building on that thought, what is something Indian schools can learn from the Australian education system and vice versa?
Okay, another great question, Jyotsna. Thank you. The Australian school system is based a lot around, I believe, the Australian lifestyle is embedded in their learning. So Australia is a very outdoors focused, sports focused, and so there's a lot of team activities, team sports. Kids get involved a lot in sports, and that is embedded in the curriculum. So that lifestyle aspect is, I think, one that India can look at more closely, just in terms of some of the campuses I've visited here have a lot of great facilities, and maybe encourage kids to do more around that. When it comes to India, the focus on STEM is something that I haven't seen anywhere else, and so I think that Australia could learn a lot from that focus, which is highly disciplined here in India. And that could be embedded a lot more into the Australian education system.
Wow, that actually relates to my next question. Now let's talk about CBS. What was your first impression when you entered our school?
My first impression was wow. The school grounds itself, the way that the school is built, and it's a very open environment, and so you walk in, it's very inviting. I was particularly impressed with the values being displayed everywhere I walked. So this is a very progressive, values-led institution, and I knew that from walking around and seeing things and the way people behaved as well, from the staff, right from the person that greeted me at the gate to everyone that I encountered throughout the school. And Miss Geeta herself was the passion, and all of the faculty members that I encountered, the students. I haven't seen that anywhere else, I must admit. It's very, very impressive. So congratulations to everyone at the school.
Yay, CBS! Thank you, Miss Natalie. Now let's switch things up with a super fun round of rapid fire questions. So I'll ask you some quick questions and you have to answer in a flash. No overthinking, just the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
I think so, yes. Let's go.
Okay. After a super hectic day, what's your go-to way to relax?
Music, listen to music.
2. If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self in 6th grade, short and sweet, what would it be?
Have fun.
Pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
Yay.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Reading people's thoughts.
Amazing, miss. I'd pick teleportation. What's the most surprising thing that you've discovered about India?
The organized chaos. Everything works. It's chaotic, but everything works. Amazing. It's an amazing country.
A time machine just appeared in front of you. Where would you go first?
I'd like to go back in time, to tell you the truth. I'd like to go back to ancient civilization to understand how they built things.
Very interesting, miss. I do the same. Okay. Slang in any language is wild. What's one Aussie slang Indians should totally know about?
Oh gosh, there's so many. There's so many. So one that you will hear is fair dinkum. So fair dinkum means that's the honest truth. That's true. So fair dinkum. And my Australian friends would tell me that I'm still pronouncing it wrong after so many years. But there you go. That's one that's very famous.
Wow, miss. That was so much fun. Sadly, we have come to the end of our podcast. What an insightful conversation, Miss Natalie. Your thoughts, passion, and leadership truly inspire us. Before we say goodbye, if you could leave our listeners, especially our students, with one piece of advice, what would it be?
The final advice I would say to students and everyone is one of my favorite quotes is from Maya Angelou, who says, people won't remember what you've said or what you did, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. So never ever forget, your actions speak louder than words.
I feel like we should write that down somewhere. Thank you so much, Miss Natalie, for being the first ever guest on our podcast. It was an absolute pleasure to hear your stories and wisdom. We are sure this will stay with us for a very long time. Viewers, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If you have any thoughts, feedback, or ideas for future podcasts, do let us know. This is Jyotsna signing off from the very first episode of the Chaman Bhartiya podcast. Stay curious, keep learning, and remember, leaders are made, not born.